I didn't go to the party looking for love. I went because my friend Mia said, and I quote, "There will be wine, music, and emotionally unavailable men pretending they're ready for commitment." She knows how to sell an event. I almost canceled twice. First because my hair refused to cooperate, and second because my favorite jeans suddenly decided they were pre-pandemic size. But at 8:12 p.m., I was in a rideshare wearing a dress that said effortless but felt like I tried for 47 minutes. On the way there, I gave myself a pep talk. Tonight, you are calm, confident, and not imagining your future wedding with anyone who smiles at you. Growth. Mia opened the door before I even knocked. "You look amazing," she said. "That's because this is my personality dress. It hides anxiety." She laughed and pulled me in. The apartment was already full. Warm lights, low music. The smell of expensive candles that people buy when they want to look emotionally stable. I grabbed a drink and told myself I'd stay 1 hour, 2 if the snacks were good. I was mid-sip when it happened. You know those movie moments where the room noise fades and someone walks in? It wasn't exactly like that, but my brain definitely paused. He walked in with 2 other guys, laughing, relaxed, the kind of confidence that doesn't ask permission to exist. Tall, well-dressed, easy smile. Not flashy, just noticed. I looked away immediately, obviously, because I am a grown woman who does not stare. I only glanced again 3 times to confirm my first impression was scientifically accurate. Mia leaned toward me. "Don't look now, but Daniel just walked in." I already looked 3 times. She smirked. "Single, works in finance. Just moved back from Chicago." "Ah, yes. The holy trinity of party information." I nodded like this data meant nothing to me. Inside my head. Finance? Great. He probably owns a watch that costs more than my rent and uses words like portfolio in casual conversation. 2 minutes later, I felt someone beside me. "Hi, I don't think we've met." Reader, of course it was him. I turned, calm, mysterious, absolutely not internally screaming. "I don't think so either. I'm Daniel." He smiled the kind of smile that probably convinced teachers to extend deadlines. I told him my name and we started talking. And here's the dangerous part. It was easy. No awkward pauses. No forced jokes. Just smooth conversation. He asked about my work. He listened. He made eye contact. He laughed at my jokes, even the mediocre ones. My brain began betraying me. Oh no, he's charming and attentive. This is how novels start. At some point, he said, "You seem different from most people here." And instead of asking what that meant, like a wise person, I said, "Different good or different concerning?" He laughed. "Different interesting." And just like that, my ego sat up straight and fixed its hair. We talked about travel, favorite foods, bad dates. He told a story about getting lost in Barcelona. I told one about accidentally attending the wrong yoga class and staying because it was too late to escape. He seemed impressed, which, frankly, impressed me. After about 30 minutes, he asked, casual as breathing, "Would you like to go out sometime?" Now, this is where past me would pretend to be busy for 3 weeks. But present me, growth era me. I said yes. Calm. Cool. Mature. Inside. Oh wow, this is happening. This is how people meet someone normal. Maybe I'll tell this story in interviews someday. We met at a party. Very cinematic. We exchanged numbers. He squeezed my hand lightly when he said goodbye. A hand squeeze. Minimal. Polite. But my brain reacted like he'd written poetry. Mia appeared at my side 2 seconds later. "You got Daniel's number?" "Maybe." She stared at me. "You did." "I might have." "You did." I took a sip of my drink. "I did." She grinned like she'd personally arranged destiny. The rest of the night, I floated a little, not in a delusional way, just light, open, curious. On the ride home, I checked my phone. One message. Daniel, really nice meeting you tonight. Let's plan that dinner. I smiled at the screen. Not a huge smile, just a small, private one. And I thought, okay, maybe this one will be a good story. I had no idea yet that it would be, just not in the way I expected. The next morning, I woke up with that rare post-party feeling of pleasantly optimistic, the emotional equivalent of finding a $20 bill in an old coat pocket. And then I remembered I had given my number to a man named Daniel who looked like he belonged in a before and after photo where the after was just him standing near a yacht. I stared at my ceiling and tried to be normal about it. Be cool, I told myself. He's just a person. A person with symmetrical features and a future that probably includes a kitchen island. I reached for my phone. No new messages. Which is fine. It had been like 9 hours. People sleep. People have jobs. People don't wake up at dawn to text the woman they met at a party. And yet, my brain was already warming up its favorite hobby, overanalysis. Maybe he's waiting so he doesn't seem eager. Maybe he's busy. Maybe he lost his phone. Maybe he was never real and I imagined him because I inhaled too many candle fumes. By lunch, I had convinced myself of all 4 possibilities. At 1:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. Daniel. Dinner this week. I know a place you'll love. I responded in a reasonable amount of time. Meaning, I stared at the message for 6 minutes to decide how many exclamation points would make me look fun but not unstable. I typed, that sounds nice. What day were you thinking? Then I deleted nice because I didn't want to sound like a polite email. Then I added it back because I didn't want to sound like a robot. Finally, I hit send. 2 seconds later, he replied, Daniel, Thursday, 8 p.m. I'll pick you up. He sent the name of the restaurant. It looked fancy, like the kind of place where the water arrives with a story. I showed Mia immediately. She responded with 17 screaming emojis and 1 sentence. We love a man with a plan. I pretended I wasn't excited. I definitely wasn't replaying the party in my head like a montage. Thursday came fast. I changed outfits 3 times. Outfit 1, 2, trying. Outfit 2, 2, I gave up. Outfit 3, a perfect middle ground, meaning it took 45 minutes and mild emotional distress. At 7:56 p.m., my phone buzzed. Daniel, outside. I looked out my window and saw a sleek black car parked at the curb. Not an absurdly flashy car, but definitely a car that whispered, I own at least 1 suit that fits perfectly. I grabbed my purse, checked my lipstick 1 last time, and walked downstairs like a woman who totally belonged in a scene like this. Daniel stood by the driver's door, smiling, wearing a dark jacket that made his shoulders look even more unfair. Hey, he said, you look beautiful. Now, I'm not saying compliments are my weakness, but if they were, this one hit like a warm cookie to the face. Thank you, I said, and slid into the passenger seat. Inside the car, everything was clean, minimal, expensive. Not in a cold way, in a curated way. Like a hotel lobby. I inhaled subtly. Leather, citrus, success. So, he said, pulling away smoothly, how's your week been? We talked for the first few minutes, and it felt easy again, like at the party. I relaxed. I even laughed at one of his jokes without checking if it was funny first. Then his phone lit up on the dashboard. A notification popped up. A name. Brittany. I didn't react. Because I am mature. Also because it could be his sister, his cousin, his dentist. People put hearts next to all kinds of things, right? He swiped the notification away quickly, but I saw it, and my brain began quietly building a PowerPoint presentation titled, Reasons This Is Fine, and Reasons It's Not. Everything okay? I asked lightly. Yeah, he said a beat too fast. Just work stuff. Work, Brittany, heart. Sure. We arrived at the restaurant and a hostess greeted him like she already knew his name, which honestly is either impressive or deeply concerning. Our table was perfect. Cozy corner, candlelight, the kind of dimness that makes everyone look slightly more romantic than they deserve. He ordered a bottle of wine without looking at the menu. I watched, pretending I wasn't impressed. Inside, he didn't even ask the price. That's either confidence or delusion. Either way, I respect it. Dinner started well. He asked questions. He smiled. He leaned in. He touched my hand lightly when he laughed. He was everything I'd imagined. And then, slowly, the cracks started. It was little things at first. He didn't ask my opinion about anything. He told me what I would like. You'll love the truffle pasta, he said. It's the best. Not, do you like truffle? Not, what do you feel like eating? Just deciding. Then he started talking about himself in long, smooth paragraphs, promotions, deals, people who didn't get it, how he couldn't stand wasting time. Every story had the same ending. And then everyone realized he was right. I nodded, smiled, sipped wine. Inside, this is less a date and more a TED Talk called The Art of Being Daniel. At one point, I tried to tell a story about my job, something funny that had happened earlier in the week. He listened for maybe 8 seconds. Then he cut in with, that reminds me of this one time I was in Miami. And suddenly, I was back in Daniel's autobiography. Okay, maybe he was nervous. Maybe he was trying to impress me. But then, the moment happened. The moment that made my stomach do that quiet little drop. Our server came over, sweet older man, kind eyes, and asked if we were ready for dessert. Daniel didn't even look at him. He waved his hand slightly, like shooing a fly. Just bring the check, he said. The server hesitated, then nodded politely and walked away. Daniel turned back to me, still smiling, like nothing happened. Something inside me cooled. Not dramatically, just enough. Because here's the thing, I don't need a man to be perfect. I don't need grand gestures. I don't need him to pick the fanciest restaurant. But I do need him to be kind to people who don't benefit him. My chest felt tight in a weird way. I took a sip of wine to buy time. And then his phone lit up again. Brittany, call me. This time, he didn't swipe it away. He picked up the phone right there. At the table. Hey, babe, he said, and my brain went completely still. Babe, Brittany, heart. I blinked once, twice. He turned slightly away from me and lowered his voice, but I heard enough. Yeah, I'm at dinner. No, it's fine. I'll call you after. I sat perfectly still, holding my glass like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to the chair. My first thought wasn't anger. It was, wow, so this is how I die, quietly, in a fancy restaurant, while a man calls another woman babe. He ended the call and looked back at me with a charming smile that now felt rehearsed. Sorry about that, he said. Work. Brittany, heart. Babe. I set my glass down carefully. So, I said, keeping my voice light, because apparently my coping mechanism is comedy. Do you always call work babe, or is that a new corporate policy? His smile froze for half a second. Then he chuckled. Come on, he said, like I was being silly. Don't start. Don't start. Oh. So now, I was the problem for noticing I was the problem. He leaned in a little. It's complicated, he said softly, but it doesn't have to be. And that sentence delivered like a gift landed like a brick. Because suddenly I could see the entire pattern. The charm, the confidence, the way he decided what I'd like, the way he didn't listen, the way he treated other people like background noise. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a preview. The server returned with the check, looking nervous. Daniel snatched it up quickly. I'll take care of it, he said, still smiling at me. And I realized I didn't even want dessert. I wanted air. I wanted to be anywhere else. Daniel paid, then stood and offered me his hand, like the date was still going exactly as planned. Let's go somewhere quieter, he said. My place isn't far. My place. Of course. I stared at him for a beat. My brain did what it always does in stressful moments. It narrated. Congratulations. You have officially entered the portion of the evening where you will need an escape plan. I smiled politely. Sure, I said, because apparently I'm the type of woman who says sure while her spirit climbs out the nearest window. As we walked out of the restaurant, I scanned the street like a spy. I needed a way out that didn't involve a scene. No drama, no yelling, no humiliation. Just clean exit. We reached his car, and he opened the passenger door. Hop in, he said. And right then, like the universe had perfect comedic timing, a woman walked past us on the sidewalk carrying a small dog in a sweater. The dog looked at me. I swear it looked at me with sympathy. I took a breath. I could do this. I could escape. I just needed one tiny opportunity. And as Daniel rounded the car to get into the driver's seat, my phone buzzed in my purse. A call. From Mia. I could have kissed her through the screen. I held up a finger to Daniel. Sorry, my friend, I said, and stepped a few paces away. I answered. Mia, I whispered urgently. I need an exit. What? She said. Are you okay? No, I said. I'm on a date with a man who has a Brittany Heartbabe situation, and I'm currently standing next to his car. Oh my God. I need you to call me back in 2 minutes and pretend there's an emergency, like a small fire or a medium fire, anything. Mia didn't hesitate. Done? She said. I'll be dramatic. Be Oscar-worthy. I was born ready. I ended the call and turned back toward Daniel, who was now watching me with mild impatience. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah, I said, because apparently the theme of the night was lying. Just checking in. Just checking in. He smiled again, like I was cute and manageable. Let's go, he said. And just as I stepped toward the car, my phone rang again. Perfect timing. I glanced at the screen and answered with a concerned gasp. Mia, what happened? I listened, nodding, widening my eyes. I even put my free hand over my mouth because I commit to the performance. Oh my God, I said. Are you serious? Daniel leaned closer. What is it? I turned slightly away, like I was trying to hear. Okay, I said into the phone. I'm coming. I hung up and looked at Daniel with regretful innocence. I'm so sorry, I said. Mia, she's locked out of her apartment and her cat is stuck on the balcony. Daniel blinked. Her cat? Yes, I said solemnly. He's emotionally fragile. Daniel stared at me like he was deciding whether this was worth his time. And I held my breath, praying he'd let me go. Finally, he sighed. Fine, he said. I'll drop you off. I smiled. Thank you, I said. Inside. Thank you, Brittany Heartbabe Man, for granting me parole. He drove in silence for the first 2 minutes. Then he glanced at me. You're not seriously leaving because of a cat, he said. I kept my face neutral. Her cat is like family, I said. He scoffed lightly. Sure. We reached my street, and the second the car stopped, I unbuckled my seatbelt like it was on fire. Thanks for dinner, I said politely, already halfway out the door. He reached for my wrist. Wait, he said. Don't be like that. We were having a good time. Were we? I gently pulled my hand back. I should go, I said. He leaned in. Let's not waste a good connection. And there it was again, this attempt to make me doubt myself. To make it feel like leaving was the wrong choice. My voice stayed calm, I don't think we want the same kind of connection, I said. His jaw tightened for a second. Then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Your loss, he said softly. I nodded like a queen accepting a compliment. Probably, I said, and closed the car door. I walked toward my building, heart pounding, half laughing, half furious. Inside. Well, that was a chapter. Not sure which genre, but definitely not romance. I got inside, locked my door, and immediately texted Mia. I am alive. And I escaped. She replied instantly. I hate him. Are you okay? I sank onto my couch, staring at the ceiling again. And I thought, maybe the universe didn't send me Daniel. Maybe it sent me a reminder. A reminder that charm isn't kindness. A reminder that perfect on paper can be a disaster in person. And as I sat there, still wearing my personality dress, my phone buzzed again. A message, not from Daniel. From an unknown number. Unknown. Hey, this is Noah. We met at Mia's place. I think you dropped this. Attached was a photo. My small gold bracelet, the one my grandmother gave me, the one I hadn't even noticed was missing. My stomach flipped. In a good way, because I remembered him now barely. Not flashy, not loud, just there. Quiet smile, kind eyes. The guy who had offered Mia's dog a piece of cheese like it was a sacred ritual. I stared at the message. And for the first time all night, I smiled without forcing it. I stared at the photo of my bracelet for a full 10 seconds before replying. Not because I was playing it cool. Because my brain was replaying every face from Mia's party like a low-budget security camera. Noah. Right. He had been in the kitchen at some point, feeding Mia's dog tiny pieces of cheese while having a very serious conversation with him. I remembered thinking, that man respects dogs. Which, in my personal ranking system, is a green flag just below returns shopping carts. I typed. Oh wow. Yes, that's mine. Thank you for finding it. Then erased wow, because I didn't want to sound like a cartoon character. Then added it back because I was wowing. I hit send. He replied quickly. Noah. Figured it might be important. It looked sentimental. That word hit softly. Sentimental. Daniel would have said expensive. Noah said sentimental. Small difference. Big feeling. It is, I wrote. It was my grandmother's. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Noah. Then I'm really glad I noticed it. Want me to drop it off somewhere? Now. A normal person would say yes, send an address, end of story. But I had just survived the date of disillusionment, and my emotional state was somewhere between reflective and hungry. Also, my brain apparently rebelling against my recent romantic failures. Whispered. You could meet him for coffee. Purely logistical. Bracelet retrieval. 0 romance. Yes. Logistical. Totally. I typed. Coffee might be easier. I can meet you. He sent a simple reply. Sure. There's a small place near the park on 3rd. Tomorrow morning. No fancy restaurant. No picking me up. No, you'll love it. Just a suggestion. I smiled at my phone. Tomorrow works, I wrote. And then I set my phone down and laughed quietly at myself. Because life is funny like that. One man takes you to a candlelit dinner and makes you want to fake a cat emergency. Another finds your bracelet and suggests coffee near a park. Guess which one felt safer? The next morning, I chose comfort over strategy. Jeans, sweater, minimal makeup, hair doing whatever it wanted within reason. If this was just a bracelet exchange, there was no need for theatrics. Still, I checked the mirror twice. For logistics. Obviously. The cafe was small and warm, the kind of place that believed in mismatched mugs and soft music. I arrived first and picked a table near the window. When Noah walked in, I recognized him immediately. Not because he was loud or striking, because he looked exactly like he had at the party, calm, observant, slightly amused by the world. He spotted me, smiled gently, and walked over. "Hi," he said, "bracelet owner." I laughed. "Bracelet rescuer." He placed it carefully on the table, like it was actually valuable in the way that matters. "I didn't want to keep it in my pocket too long," he said. "Felt like borrowing a memory." Borrowing a memory. Who says that? Apparently Noah. "Thank you," I said, fastening it back onto my wrist. "You saved me from a very sad search later." "Happy to help." We stood there for half a second too long. Then he gestured to the counter. "Since you're already here, coffee?" This wasn't a performance invite. It was casual, optional. I nodded. "Coffee sounds good." We ordered and came back to the table. Conversation started the way good ones do, without trying. He asked about my grandmother after I mentioned the bracelet, not in a dramatic way, just curious. I told him a short story about her love for gold jewelry and bad soap operas. He laughed at the right parts, listened at the quiet ones. No interrupting, no one-upping, just listening. At one point, I realized something strange. I wasn't performing. No clever lines, no polished version of myself. Just me. And he seemed perfectly comfortable with that. Outside, a light drizzle started, tapping gently on the windows. Noah glanced at it. Perfect walking weather. I raised an eyebrow. That's a bold statement. "I like quiet rain," he said. "Makes the world slow down a bit." That sentence settled somewhere warm in my chest. Not fireworks. Not butterflies. More like calm. We finished our coffee, and neither of us rushed to leave. Finally, I said, half joking, "Thank you again for the bracelet." "And the coffee?" he asked. "That too." He smiled. "Good. I'd hate to be remembered only as the bracelet guy." I tilted my head. "Depends. Bracelet guy has a nice reputation so far." He laughed softly. We stepped outside under the drizzle. He didn't try to extend the moment dramatically. Didn't suggest dinner. Didn't turn it into a scene. Just, "Have a good day," he said. "You too," I replied. And then we walked in opposite directions. Simple. Normal. Yet my chest felt oddly light. On the way home, my brain tried to analyze it. Was that a date? Was it just coffee? Do we label bracelet-related meetings? But my heart wasn't asking big questions. It was just calm. And maybe, after Daniel and his Britney Heart Babe chaos, calm felt like a luxury. That night, as I changed into pajamas, my phone buzzed. A message. Noah. "Glad your bracelet made it back home safely." I smiled. "Me too," I wrote. "It belongs there." A second later, "Maybe next time we can lose something less valuable and still get coffee." I laughed out loud. Okay. That was smooth. Not Daniel smooth. Human smooth. I typed back. "I'll try not to lose anything, but coffee is negotiable." He reacted with a simple thumbs up. No pressure. No push. Just space. I lay in bed that night thinking something I hadn't thought in a while. Not about him specifically, but about the idea that maybe love doesn't always arrive loudly. Maybe sometimes it just sits across from you in a small cafe and returns what matters to you. And maybe that's enough to begin with. If you had asked me a month earlier what a promising romantic connection looked like, I would have described chemistry, excitement, sparks. After Noah, I would have added one more word. Ease. Not boring. Not flat. Just easy in the way breathing is easy. We didn't text constantly. There were no dramatic late-night confessions. No, "where is this going?" speeches. Just occasional messages that felt natural. A photo of a dog he saw that looked like Mia's but with better life choices. A joke about how cafes charge extra for oat milk, but not for emotional damage. A random, hope your day's going well. Small things, but real. A week after the bracelet rescue, he asked, "There's a street market by the river Saturday. Good food, bad live music. Want to go?" Good food and bad music sounded oddly honest. I said yes. Saturday arrived bright and breezy, the kind of weather that convinces people to fall in love with life for a few hours. I wore sneakers because markets are not high-heel territory, no matter what movies say. Noah was already there when I arrived, standing near a fruit stand, debating peaches with the vendor like it was a serious decision. He waved when he saw me. "Important question," he said. "Do you trust a peach that's too perfect?" I blinked. I don't trust anything that's too perfect. He nodded solemnly. "Good. We'll get the slightly flawed ones." Which felt metaphorical, but I didn't say that out loud. We walked, sampled food, made fun of a band that was confidently off-key. At one point, a little kid ran past us chasing bubbles and nearly crashed into me. Noah gently steadied the kid before he bumped into my coffee. Reflexively kind. Not performative. My brain noticed. Green flag, it whispered. We ended up sitting by the river with paper trays of food that were definitely too messy for elegance. At some point, he asked, casually, "So how's your dating life been lately?" I laughed. "That depends. Do you want the short version or the mildly tragic comedy?" He smiled. "Comedy." So I gave him the Daniel summary, the highlights, the Brittany Hart babe revelation. Noah didn't laugh at me. He laughed with me. "That sounds exhausting," he said. "It was educational," I corrected. "What did you learn?" I thought about it for a second. "That charm isn't the same as care." He nodded like that made sense. Then he said something simple that stuck with me. "You deserve calm." Not "you deserve the best." Not "you deserve someone amazing." Calm. It felt strangely accurate. Later, we passed a small stand selling handmade bracelets. Simple, delicate ones. He glanced at my grandmother's bracelet. "You're still safe?" he asked. I lifted my wrist. "Very." "Good," he said. "One rescue mission per month is my limit." I laughed. And somewhere in that laugh, I realized I wasn't analyzing him. I wasn't imagining futures or reading signs. I was just enjoying the day, which for me was new. When the sun started dipping lower, we naturally slowed our steps. No grand finale. No movie moment speech. Just a comfortable quiet. At the corner where we'd split ways, he said, "I had fun today." "Me too." A small pause. Then he added, "If you ever lose another bracelet, you know who to call." I smiled. "I'll try to misplace something small." He chuckled. "Have a good night," he said. "You too." And again, we walked away in opposite directions. No pressure. No rush. Yet something gentle was growing. That night, I thought about something funny. Daniel had given me a flashy evening I wanted to escape. Noah gave me a simple afternoon I didn't want to end. Same city. Same week. Very different feelings. Maybe the universe wasn't sending me men. Maybe it was sending me contrast. And contrast is a very effective teacher. 2 days later, as I left work, I found a small paper bag hanging on my door handle at home. Inside was a peach, slightly imperfect, and a note for someone who doesn't trust perfect things. I stared at it for a full minute, then laughed to myself. Because who leaves a peach as a romantic gesture? Apparently Noah. And somehow it worked. I put the peach in my kitchen, looked at it like it was a symbol of something I wasn't ready to define yet, and thought, maybe love doesn't knock loudly. Maybe it just leaves fruit at your door. And honestly, that felt about right. I wish I could say the peach changed my life. It didn't. I still had deadlines. Still forgot to water my plants. Still overthought text messages sometimes. But every time I looked at that slightly imperfect peach on my counter, I smiled. Because it meant someone had paid attention. And attention, I was learning, is a quiet form of care. Noah and I didn't suddenly become a movie montage. There were no instant labels. We just kept showing up in small ways. A shared coffee. A walk when the weather was nice. A meme about how adult life is just pretending to understand insurance. Comfort grew slowly, like a song you don't notice you love until you're humming it. One evening, we ended up back at that same small cafe near the park, the Bracelet Cafe, as I now called it in my head. It was drizzling again. Apparently, my life had developed a soft spot for light rain and emotional symbolism. We sat by the window, watching people hurry past. At some point, Noah said, "Can I tell you something honest?" My brain immediately prepared for drama. "Okay," I said. He stirred his coffee like he was organizing his thoughts. "I like spending time with you," he said simply. "It feels peaceful." Clark's peaceful. There it was again. Peace. Calm. Ease. Not fireworks. Not intensity. And maybe that's why it felt real. I smiled. "I like spending time with you too," I admitted. No violins played. No cinematic kiss followed. Just a shared look that said enough. On my way home that night, I caught my reflection in a store window and noticed something. I looked lighter. Not because of him specifically, but because I wasn't trying to force a story anymore. I wasn't chasing a type. I wasn't mistaking attention for interest. I wasn't confusing charm for character. I was just letting things unfold. And for someone who used to plan her emotional future like a project timeline, that was new. A week later, Mia asked the question everyone eventually asks. "So," she said, eyes sparkling, "is this going somewhere?" I thought about it. About Daniel. About Brittany Hart Babe. About the bracelet. The peach. The market. The quiet coffees. And I answered honestly, "I don't know," I said, "but it feels nice while it's happening." She stared at me like she was proud. "That's very emotionally mature of you." "Don't get used to it," I said. Here's what I know now. The man who looks perfect across a crowded room might just be a lesson wearing a good jacket. And the one who quietly notices what matters to you might be something else entirely. Not a fairy tale. Not destiny. Just a possibility. And sometimes, a good possibility is more than enough to start with. Last Sunday, Noah and I walked by the river again, the same spot as the market, but quieter. We sat on a bench, watching the water. A comfortable silence settled between us. Then he said lightly, "You know, if we were a movie, this is where something big would happen." I laughed. "Like what?" "I don't know," he said. "A dramatic confession, a kiss in the rain, a sudden realization." I thought about it. Then I shook my head. "I think," I said, "if we were a movie, this would be the part where the audience realizes the story isn't about a big moment." He looked at me, curious. "It's about small ones," I finished. He smiled at that. And we stayed there a little longer, just watching the water, sharing quiet space. I don't know where this goes. Maybe it turns into love. Maybe it turns into a beautiful chapter. Maybe it just teaches me something I needed to learn. But I do know this. Love doesn't always arrive as a spark. Sometimes it arrives as a calm voice, a returned bracelet, and a peach left at your door. Sometimes it arrives as someone who listens. And sometimes that's exactly what the heart was hoping for all along. If you ask me now whether I believe in timing, I'd say this. Maybe timing isn't about finding the perfect person at the perfect moment. Maybe it's about becoming the version of yourself who recognizes what feels right when it shows up. And when it does, you don't have to chase it. You just sit beside it on a bench by a river and let it stay as long as it wants.